But I did some research on the 90s music because
You did?
I was just yeah. Um, it was
Yeah.
my heyday of music actually. Uh, I'm from the 80s. I was born
Yeah.
in 1980. So the 90s were, yeah, I was really enjoying music back then already. But you know how it goes. If you have to think back 30 years, it's like, wow, what happened then? But
A long time.
damn,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
90s are incredible in terms of music,
Yes.
actually.
Yes.
It's lovely.
Especially 1994. But I don't know if this is a part of our story today, but 1994, 30 years ago, that was
What happened in 1994 then?
so many breakthrough albums came out
Ah, yeah, yeah, yeah.
in that year. I cannot actually can't remember the names, but I just remember that 1994 is something that they talk about in the music industry as
Cool.
something. Yeah.
Because
So,
I,
what did your research show? What did you?
well, I was just wondering what bands were really big back then, what music um, categories were hot, and uh, at least in the Netherlands, I mean, the house music had a really, really good time in the 90s.
Yeah.
And I liked all sorts of music. I mean, I was I was just going through the list of bands that were big back then. Nirvana with the album
Yeah.
Nevermind was
Oh
huge, of
yes.
course, back then.
Yeah.
I love bands like Tool and A Perfect Circle and progressive rock. And a lot of
Yeah.
bands actually were pretty big back then. So I was like, okay.
Yes.
Metallica launched the Black Album. I was listening to Machine Head, White Zombie, Fear Factory. They were really big back then. I was also listening to house music. Moby was
Mhm.
really big in the 90s.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ministry of Sound was launched. Cream, as also house labels that I enjoyed a lot. And of course, in the Netherlands, house music like happy hardcore was having I didn't like happy hardcore, but I was just surprised. Like a lot of things happened, and singer songwriters were also returning, like Sarah
They were.
McLachlan and Pink and Avril Lavigne and music like that.
You're
I was
right.
too I was too young. I was in how do you call it, middle school or high school? I don't know. We call it middelbare school when
Yeah.
you're like
Okay.
12, 13,
Yeah.
and I was too young for
We
singer
have something
songwriter.
we have something similar. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, if you go through this through that list, it's like, man, a lot happened in the 90s. It's crazy.
Mm. Yeah. That's true.
I
And a
feel
lot
old
of
now.
welcome to the club.
Yeah,
But I think it's great to feel old. I think it's great to feel that you have been here.
yeah,
You have not just come out of the egg. You have actually been there. You have been around for some time, and but but discovering things like that is like coming out of the egg because you feel that some kind of new view at what happened back then
yeah.
is a new level of recognition of what happened. So I think it's a
But
great topic to talk about.
I think it's a lovely topic. I mean, we all love music. I hope. At least I like playing music on that system behind me, and I enjoy it
Yeah.
a lot. And actually, if you think back, because a lot of people complain about the recording quality in the 90s, but what do you think? Is it really that different from now?
Absolutely. Um, Actually, something happened in the 90s, and when it comes to recording
Hmm.
music, and I've actually done a bit of research myself when it comes
Good.
to recording in the 90s, and I have written something down, and I think I will have to read it. But what I see is that what this is about when we talk about the sound of these recordings,
Hmm.
and when we talk about our hi-fi industry, it does. This is actually about working in silos.
Hmm.
I don't know if you have that expression, but it's like when some business or part of a business is working in their own silo, and another
Hmm.
part of business is working in their own, and there's no real communication going on between the two. So maybe they know that each other exists, but 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 they don't care because each are working on their own. So I think that is what I think happened in the 90s. That something happened in music between
Yeah.
the artists and technology. There was a development going on in recording technology that was picked up by the artists, and we didn't ever see that in hi-fi. It was not anything that we ever recognized. It was something that was happening in the recording studios and in the minds of many, many artists, and we didn't ever recognize it. We didn't see it coming. Um, so that is the things that I have found, and I think I will read it. Read just a
Hmm.
few sentences of what I found, which my research have shown. But on my way to this small room here, uh, our video room, um, I passed our museum here at the System Audio, and I found a speaker that that we made back in the 90s. This one.
Show me.
This
Ah.
was a this was
Yeah.
a wonderful speaker in the 90s. But when I look at it now, through this kind of the awakening that we're talking about, is that this speaker was made like you would make a speaker way back then, but it was actually not capable of handling what the artists were trying to express in the 90s.
Oh,
It was
really?
not yeah, it was not, because it was the working in silo thing.
Yeah, isolated
Uh,
from each other, you mean?
yeah,
The is it like the if you make a recording in a studio, if I'm correct, I'm not a studio engineer, but say we make a recording, the band is playing, you make the recording, you do the mixing part, like the
mm,
leveling and the balance in the recording, and after that it goes to the mastering engineer. Is that what you mean?
yeah.
Like they work separately from each other,
Ye- mm, what I
or
mean
you mean the
is,
artists are separate from each
I
other?
mean, yeah, yeah. This could sound a little complicated, but it's actually only about two things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because this is about the sound of bass.
Ah.
What happened in the 90s is that recording technology was improved.
Mm-hmm.
So recording studios were able to put lower frequencies i- into the recordings at a
Yeah.
much higher quality than music from the 80s. Listen to a recording like Michael Jackson, Bad,
Mm-hmm.
or go even back to the 70s with Pink Floyd, like Dark Side of the Moon. There are many, many wonderful things to say about the music and the recordings on those two albums.
Yeah.
But the bass was actually, compared to what we hear today, the bass was actually not that impressive. And
No.
that is something that happened in the 90s, that they could record frequencies down to 20 hertz, and we can hear them. We can hear those deep frequencies, and they could suddenly record it. They could put it on the recording, and that was the technological part of this. But another thing is that the artists, they all of the time they try to find new ways to express themselves.
Yeah.
they try to experiment with new instruments, new sounds, new soundscapes, new ways to grab an audience, and probably also a new ways to describe what is going on in society, in
Mm-hmm.
culture, etc., etc. And
Yep.
bass is really good at expressing dynamics in music, and for artists, deep bass is really good at expressing anger. And there is something in the part that I've written here um, about the artistic choices. I googled this, as a matter of fact. They talk about energy, intensity, and what artists wanted to achieve by having a wider frequency response in music was to to have more energetic music. But I can speak for myself, saying that our speakers were not able to to deliver that.
That's
We
very
would have,
honest.
yeah, but we were focused on, we had our minds back in the 90s or the 70s, and we
Yeah.
focused on mid-range,
Yeah.
openness,
Clarity.
transparency, all of those things. And at that time, at the same time, artists were sitting in the recording studios with new technology, making it possible for them to express anger and energy. And and that is a whole other issue. It's a whole other story. And for a loudspeaker and for a hi-fi system, it's a whole other world to go down to 20 hertz
Yeah.
and reproduce deep bass.
That's a very
Uh,
interesting thing, by the way, because if you think about it, what's happening now, uh, music changed enormously since the 90s. I mean, everyone can record a track now on a laptop, and it's actually, well, it's pretty decent. And if you compare it to 30, 40 years ago, it's
yeah,
actually very, very good what they can do
yeah,
now in the box. Um, but I think because of that, maybe also the hi-fi industry is not catching up fast enough to keep up with the music right now, and maybe that's why these GBL Bluetooth speakers that actually produce a ridiculous amount of bass from a very small
mm,
box are that popular. Maybe because that target audience, like the teenagers, listen to
yeah.
different music than we do,
It could be a part
and
of it.
yeah,
But there is, you have to distinguish between two different things when we talk about bass,
yeah,
because uh, there is the amount of bass and there is the depth part of it. How
yeah,
deep does it
yeah,
go and
yeah,
how much is it? So
yeah,
um, if you take a spectrum analyzer, if you go to Spotify, now it's nerdy, okay? If you
yeah,
take a
yeah.
spectrum, if you take
I'm
a
fine.
if you take a spectrum analyzer and you go through top 50 hits on Spotify, always since the 90s and up until now,
Hmm.
um, spectrum analyzer would analyze the width of frequency in
Yeah,
the music. You will see that 63% of the energy in music since the 90s, 63% is below 70 hertz. I
no,
mean,
that much?
most of the energy in the music is in the bass.
Wow.
And and this is important if you want to hear the music as the artist intended, like
Yeah, we strive that as hi-fi nerds. We
yeah,
really
we
want
want,
to. Yeah,
yeah, we want to hear what they've made and
yeah,
the way they made it. Then we just have to realize that one of the most irritating facts is that a lot of information is in the bass, and bass is um, a struggle for reproducing in a room,
Yeah.
and it's a yeah, it's very easy to hear something else than what
Hmm.
you find on the recording. It's very
So
easy to yeah.
now, what I was thinking, so there was a turning point in the 90s in terms of recording. They could add more
Yes.
bass, higher quality bass, but you say the hi-fi industry was not ready yet. They were still living in the 80s, and the
Mm.
systems were not really capable of reproducing what they recorded. Was it because the turnaround was so fast in the studios? Like there was now technology, and suddenly they released tracks with just higher quality and deeper bass, mostly.
I don't know. To be honest, I think the silo idea of
Mm-hmm.
musicians on one hand and the whole recording industry and hi-fi, those two worlds are divided in many ways.
Yeah,
We are fans of
yeah,
music, and just like you described before, it's a part of our world, it's a part of our culture, it's a part of how we see ourselves, and we all love music, and that's why we have hi-fi systems. But the the there is a distance between the two silos where there's nobody there. Nobody is, I think,
Ooh,
what is it that you want us to hear on the other side?
yeah.
And I think they are busy enough on their side to just express themselves and have someone publish. And I don't know if we are not interested, or if our silo simply does not recognize what is going on. For my part, I think it's interesting to see what they do, um,
No.
but but it's difficult to get this message through. But I don't know why.
Yeah, it is really difficult. I totally agree. And I have to admit, I sometimes catch myself in the trap of just listening to equipment as well. And there's this quote, I'm not sure if it's really Alan Parsons' quote, but
Ah,
he's always, yeah, you know what I mean. Like
yeah,
audiophiles don't listen to your music, they use your music to listen to their equipment. And as a reviewer, I do that a lot. I use tracks. I have a certain track list that I use to determine the quality of a component, like a speaker or an amp or whatever I'm testing. But I have to admit, I catch myself in that trap sometimes at home as well. I'm just listening to the quality of the system, and it makes me not enjoying music. And
mm,
I hope that we can send out a message to all our hi-fi fans and enthusiasts. Stop listening to equipment and start listening to music. Just enjoy the track. Yes, you need a good system to fully enjoy the music, of course, and the better the equipment, I think, the quicker you get into that emotion
mm,
of enjoying music. But I hope that the hi-fi industry as well uh, will start listening to music as well, because I think I
yeah,
can feel that a producer or a developer of equipment really enjoys music or not. It
mm,
just gets this schwung and
absolutely.
emotion
Yeah,
instead of just sterile sterile presentation of music. I think you
mm,
can notice. That's
absolutely, absolutely.
yes.
And when a producer and when the artist are clear about what they want to get out to the audience, both in
Hmm.
terms of, you know, message in the music and the sound itself. There's so much more pleasure in
Yeah.
listening to something that has been complete, in terms of they spent the time mixing it correctly, using the right instruments and emphasizing on um, recording quality.
Yes, I think
But
so. Yes.
for our task is also to hear and to recognize that there that since the 90's the artists have increasingly tried to express something with their music that we have not noticed. I don't know why. But I know that when it comes to bass, and especially when it comes to deep bass, it is problematic for the audiophile. It, too much bass will will in a listening room will make it very cloudy.
Yeah.
There's clarity disappears, so it's very easy to like sound with less bass.
Yes.
and it can be difficult to struggle with getting sound correctly reproduced when the level of bass is perfect.
Yes.
But that's what they made in the studio. Um,
True. Yeah. Well, that's funny you say that because isn't the 90's, well, it was the it was when house music really got popular. Well, house music has a lot of bass. It's
yeah,
probably more than 68% of bass.
probably.
And yeah, I've been to a lot of house parties in my study days, and I loved it. I mean, the bass energy during such a live performance is it's incredible, and it really
Mm,
moves you if you're into that. You can never ever reproduce that at home. No, I got that point pretty fast, that it's
yeah,
impossible. Um, but maybe that's indeed the time that bass got more important because it was possible now to record it,
yeah,
and transferring that to a living room is really hard. It's maybe even impossible. That's why we have active bass traps in our listening room.
yeah.
it,
But
it
oh
works.
yeah, I see that. Yeah, but there is another issue when it comes to bass and when it comes to the difference between hi-fi and recording studios.
Yes.
Um, and that is that in the very best recording studios, in the top, if you look at how they are equipped, the top, the absolute top of the best recording studios, they would usually have like three kinds of speakers. They will also have
Mm-hmm.
headphones, but they will have normally three kinds of speakers. A small speaker to
Yeah.
hear how the music will sound in a car or somewhere in a transistor radio, if someone has ever even got that anymore. But
Yeah.
how does the music come out on a small pair of speakers? And then they will have on the mixing console, they will have a relatively can you see my hand?
Yeah.
A
Yeah. I can still
relatively
see it. Yeah.
normal
Yeah.
sized, exactly. They
Yeah.
will have a bookshelf sized speaker to hear how the music sounds on a hi-fi system.
Yeah.
And the big studios will also have what's called main monitors, and they are always in-wall speakers. They are
Yeah.
always
Full
big,
range.
but they are
Yeah.
always full range in-wall speakers. And that's what they use when they want to hear how the recording really sounds.
Yeah.
And
True.
these speakers are not in-wall because of they lack space in recording studios. Those speakers are in-wall because it solves a lot of acoustic problems when you have the speakers mounted in the wall, when there are no edges that will cause reflections from the cabinet. And that is a kind of speaker system where the low frequencies of a loudspeaker is always radiated 60, 630, 660, 360 degrees all
360.
around the
Yes.
speaker. Yeah,
Yeah.
all around
Woo.
the speaker. Yeah, yeah. So the amount of bass from a speaker is the same all around the speaker.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
when
Yeah.
they listen to the small speaker on the mixing console and the bigger speaker on the mixing console, there will be bass being reflected from the rear wall of the studio and from all the other walls, and those reflections will mean that the sound is not very precise. So when they listen to the main monitors, they want to have a more precise sound. So the speaker is in wall in order to avoid reflections from the rear wall. That
Yeah.
is why the speaker is in wall. And
True.
um, that message has kind of not gotten through to the hi-fi silo.
Nope.
We would never consider an in-wall or an on-wall speaker being serious enough for our business. And
I
in
noticed that as well on the website because we have on the other side of this room there's a cinema setup for testing multi-channel stuff. I
okay,
stopped doing it because we don't have the audience. But I thought, well, maybe I can do two-channel in-wall loudspeakers because we can swap in-wall speakers in that setup as well, and
yeah,
they sound incredible. They're
yeah,
really, really, really good. No interest at all. Nothing.
no, no,
They just don't want to.
no,
And I don't get it because it saves space in your living room. It solves, like you said, a lot of issues
oh
considering
yeah,
bass. Uh, Stereo imaging is not a problem anymore because they can tune it so that the image will go forward and you have a perfectly
oh yeah,
stable 3D image.
yeah,
But no one is interested. So
no,
I
it's
just
not
don't
a,
get it.
no, it's not a part of the culture. And
No.
if you visit manufacturers of drive units, speaker
Yeah.
units, and you go to the laboratory to see how do they make these units, how do they measure what they do. I mean, the
Mm-hmm.
engineers when they make a certain progress, they put it in the lab and then they make measurements and then they design the drive units like that. The drive units are always mounted in a wall.
Yeah.
Always. They never test drive units
No.
in a speaker cabinet.
No.
Never. They
No.
always put it in a wall. So you can say that the drive unit of a loudspeaker, any loudspeaker, is designed for being used
Yeah.
in a wall,
In a wall.
because
Yeah.
in a cabinet you never know how far away the edges are, how big the surface is, and so the engineers will have to use a standard, and the standard is the wall. So they put it in the wall, and
Yeah.
we put it in cabinets.
Yeah.
So we take something that is designed for a wall, and then we put it in a cabinet, and then we get some problems out of it, and then we solve it the best way we can. But actually, we could solve everything by putting it back to the wall
In a
where
wall.
it was supposed to be. Yeah, that is.
It's
I
actually
mean, that is not something that I'm making up.
no. No,
That's how
I
it is.
noticed it as well. It's really crazy, but yeah, that's just how it works. And yeah, I get it. I mean, you have to. I think that the living rooms in Denmark are quite similar to the ones in Holland. I mean, it's all brick, and you have to build a wall in front of a wall to
Yeah,
put your loudspeaker in, and it's hard. I get it, and you can't move it, and it's not tweakable, and you don't see the loudspeaker as good, and people want to show off, of course, with their brand new high-end
of
loudspeakers. But
course. Yeah,
technically, it's just inferior.
Mm.
I,
yeah,
I think that's.
it is. And
But you're a
and
designer. I'm just a consumer, so it's.
so it's up to me. You mean?
Yeah,
but
I guess so.
no, but actually, it is important to recognize that this is what's happening in speakers
Hmm.
in music, and that is the food chain when the artists are evaluating their music in the studio on the best system.
Hmm.
They will have a lot of bass. They will have a lot of deep bass that many speakers are not able to reproduce in a home. Part of the
Yeah,
reason is that the speakers are probably not designed for playing those deep notes. Another issue is room acoustics, and
Yeah.
and because the speakers are not in the wall or on the wall. I'm
So
sorry.
all that knowledge concerning recordings and bandwidth and energy was actually triggered by music in the 90s. That's pretty nuts if you think about it. That
That
just the step
happened.
in,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
that
It
switch
happened in the
because they
90s.
now had the technology uh, to create all that, and
Mm.
then the hi-fi industry had to catch up in terms of building better loudspeakers, I think. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's pretty crazy. Yeah.
It is. Take a track like Massive Attack. They have
Oh,
Angel.
was that the
This,
90s?
yeah, I think it was 98. I'm not sure. I think it was 98, but that is the 90s. Massive
Wow,
Attack, Rage
I'm
Against the
getting old.
Machine. Yeah, finally
Yeah,
realized.
it's one of my favorite albums of Massive Attack.
Mm,
Mezzanine is just so beautiful,
yeah,
and 100th Window as well, but it was more dark. But I'm a huge Massive Attack fan,
yeah,
and my viewers on Alpha Audio know that because I use it a lot. Actually, we
you
called
do.
Angel the speaker killer. It's so hard
Exactly.
to
That's what I'm
reproduce.
talking
It's
about.
yeah, it's really hard to reproduce,
Yeah, yeah,
especially where the kick gets in. I had an active loudspeaker made by some Canadian company. I'm not gonna mention names, but he said, "Yeah, we can do 30 hertz full blast." I said, "Okay, well let's play Angel then." And
yeah,
as soon as the bass kick got in, like do doom do doom,
yeah.
no no
It all
do yeah, and
collapses. Yeah,
it clipped and it just switched off. It was
yeah,
just end end of
yeah.
story.
But
Uh,
that is the 63% of the energy in the deepest bass, and as an example of a speaker that is actually not designed for it. I'm not.
no, it
I
really wasn't. No, but at hip
and
hop as well because I was reading some extra info. Like Dr. Dre released the Chronic in the 90s, and West Coast hip hop has also a lot of bass,
yeah,
and maybe because yeah, I think there was the time that internet also broke through a little bit, at least at the end of the 90s.
mm,
So we could download all sorts of music,
ah,
and
yeah.
yeah, that way West Coast hip hop transferred to Europe as well. At least it got more
So
common.
so you wouldn't buy the CDs or
Oh yeah,
or
I bought a lot of CDs, end of the 90s and in the 2000s. I think 80% of
yeah.
my CD collection was bought during that period. And as a student, I think most of my money went into hi-fi and CDs. So that's
I know the story.
yeah, I was a big collector of music.
Yeah,
So yeah, that's
but you
as
think
I still
that
buy a lot of
the
music.
internet was part of the reason that this hip hop came to Europe.
I think so. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, because well, let's be honest. A lot of people downloaded illegal music
yeah,
end of the 90s
yeah.
and
They
in the
did.
2000s. It's just a fact. And I think
It
that's
is.
why the music distributed much more easily and much broader than it normally would.
Yeah,
Because, yeah, I discovered, and that's the thing, but that's a whole other podcast. Um, I think that the illegal download industry actually launched a lot of bands and genres because people got acquainted with it. I downloaded a lot of bands I would have recognized in the
yeah,
CD store, and then I thought, wow, this is great. I'm gonna buy this CD because the quality is mostly bad. At
yeah,
least back then, it was all MP3 and bad
yeah,
MP3s.
yeah.
So eventually, I still bought the CDs, although I had it in MP3. And yeah, I am a quality nerd, I know, and a lot of people don't care, but I still think that a lot of bands wouldn't have been known in Europe if it wasn't for the internet.
absolutely. I agree, and if I can, I'm older than you, so if I can add something from
Yeah.
from the from way back when, uh, in the if you take music from the 70s,
Mm-hmm.
and if you think about bands that you remember, they will
Yeah.
all be big names. You don't know
Yes.
any small bands from the 70s
Yeah.
because they never made it to come up with any recordings. And in those days, that was before digital. So in
Mm-hmm.
those days, it was risky for the record labels to publish something. It was expensive because you had to, it was analog, so you had to cut tapes. It was really
Yeah.
expensive. So it was a big risk for any record company to launch something. So what they did was that they had these expert groups that would decide where to put the money. And that was
Yeah.
obviously the big names, someone that could fill a stadium. So they were filtering the the music that we knew. Uh,
Yeah.
so I absolutely agree with you that um, um, the illegal distribution of music was, of course, not okay, but it opened an opportunity for someone, just like you said in the beginning,
Yeah.
to sit in their own living room publishing something to someone and
Yeah.
suddenly have an audience.
I
And
think that's the positive side of internet. Yes. And of
yeah,
course, piracy is not okay. It isn't.
no,
But it also created possibilities for people that would have never been known, like you said, in the
exactly,
60s or 70s. They just didn't have a chance, and now
exactly.
they did. Yeah, so
Yeah,
that's the
more
beauty.
music comes out now than ever before in history.
Yeah, but also a lot of crap.
100,000 songs. Absolutely, yeah. So
That's
that's the new game. Uh,
yeah.
that there's too much music, but
The thing with streaming, I have sort of a hate-love relationship with streaming because it's beautiful that you have this collection of music that you would have never discovered if it wasn't for streaming. But I noticed that I'm just scrolling through lists of
yeah,
artists that I have never heard of and I don't know. It just so you randomly just listen to some music
yeah.
instead of really focus on one album that you really enjoy. And
Mm,
that's the other part of streaming that I think we still have to learn how to live with it.
yeah,
That's the feeling I have.
I
And
agree. Um, 100,000 songs, new songs are being published every day, and
wow.
it's to me it's the same kind of silo idea
Hmm.
that we
Yeah.
are the music fans on one hand, and the music industry on the other hand, and they are just publishing, publishing
Yeah.
new things.
Yeah.
And it took, I don't know how it is in the Netherlands or anywhere else, but I would like for someone to sit in between, someone that I trust and someone
Hmm.
that I would like to listen to say, this has come out.
Yes.
Now this is happening. This
Yes.
new direction or this new artistic expression or new kind of instrument or whatever is happening right now. Maybe
Yeah.
you should be the one to go and check it out. That it's too divided. Too many songs are
Hmm.
coming out that no one will ever hear. And
Yeah, I
that
agree. But
connection,
how did you listen in the 90s and 80s? Did you just sit down, put on a CD or some vinyl and just listen to the album? And
yeah,
how much
well,
music did you have back then?
a lot compared to are you talking to me or anyone?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Because
no, no,
I had
just to you. Yeah.
I had a lot. I had a lot
Mhm.
of music, and to be honest, we had two TV channels. We had wired phones. We had no internet. So um, my source for music would be to go to the record store where they knew
Yes.
me, and I knew the guys that were standing there. So I
Mhm.
just had to walk in the through the door, and they would say, "Hi, Ole, this has come out, and this is for you." I'm sure you would, and I could trust them. Um,
Yeah.
I would
Yeah.
even buy albums for myself for a Christmas present. So I would ask the guy in the record shop, and I would tell him I would like to buy a present for myself, someone I don't know.
Oh,
It should be
nice.
an artist that I don't know, and he would know what I had already because I bought my LPs there. So I
Yeah.
would like to give myself something that I like, but I don't know. And I would open, my own present, my own Christmas present for myself
Oh,
with
wow.
this artist. Yeah, wonderful. What is this? I have no idea what it is, but I know I'm going to like it. And then I
That's
would
so
put it
cool.
on, and that's the guy that I'm missing today. The guy that I trust. Oh, it doesn't have to be a guy. That's not the issue. Just someone that I trust to recommend something, not based on what I've heard before, because that will probably be too close to what I already listened to.
Yeah.
Something that is a little bit off, but still reflects where I am in my development as a music fan.
That's actually how I discovered a couple of bands that I still listen to a lot. Just by
Yeah,
going to the CD store, this is what I like, this is what I already have. What do you recommend? And the guy came up with Vertical Horizon, I Am Clued, and some stuff that I've never ever heard of. And
mm,
I love those bands. And that's so cool that you find something new that you really, really enjoy. I really,
yeah,
I've, it's some, yeah, it felt like love. And that's something I really miss with streaming. That
yeah,
surprise element, like, oh, wow, this is so
yeah,
cool. And yeah, sometimes I have that, but it's getting less. And that's, I think, because of the enormous amount of choice we have now. I think the human brain is just not made for that.
no,
It's too much.
eh,
That's
yeah. It's already a problem to focus on anything. So
yes,
if someone would like to do it for us when it comes to
yeah,
choice of music,
yeah.
and it should not be an algorithm because I think they are still too simple.
I think
It should
so.
be
Yeah,
someone.
yeah. They
We should
can't
we should
think
meet in
outside the
groups.
box.
No,
Oh,
no,
great idea. Music groups. Just share out music and enjoy it together. I think that would
yeah.
be a great idea. Just scale back, and that maybe we found something. We're
Maybe
gonna scale back the industry and make it fun again. Now there's always beauty and there's a downside to everything. I mean, music was pretty expensive, to be honest. I mean, I think I bought 4 or 5 CDs every month as a student, so that's a lot of money if you think about what you
yes.
earn. And I bought some hi-fi equipment even, and I had 3 jobs to finance my
So,
hobby. It's
and
completely
that
nuts.
did not
And
ring a bell.
it did, but I couldn't care less
No,
because I loved it,
no.
and I still did my studies, so I was okay.
Yeah,
But
great.
I think I bought 700 CDs during my studies, and it's crazy if you think about it. But that's how much I love music, and I
Mm,
still do. But back then, you just went to a store and you could listen to a couple of CDs or albums, whatever you like, and it's
yeah.
different now. But we're really diverging from the 90s topic,
Mm,
but it doesn't matter. It's great to share thoughts about the music industry instead of just nerding out on loudspeakers and amplifiers, because
mm,
this is
yeah.
of course what it's all about. Um, but this is part one of a whole series. We're also going to talk about live music versus home
Yes.
hi-fi,
Yeah.
and we're even going to talk about new trends in the hi-fi industry. But yeah, the whole idea was 20 minutes per podcast, but we're already in for 40
Where are
or
we now?
something. 40, I think, something like that.
Okay.
But that
Yeah.
that doesn't matter. There is no set time limit. But I think if it's okay to round this episode off, and
Can I have
think
just one last wish then
sure,
before
yeah,
we close off? What do we call this? Do we call? I mean,
the
can you come up with a
series.
name? Yeah.
Wow, we could ask our viewers, our listeners, to
Ah,
give it a name.
that's a good idea.
How we're gonna call this? I'm not sure. We just went in blind and talked
Exactly.
about music. It's great,
Exactly.
isn't it? But let's just ask them what how we should call this series of topics.
Yeah, that's a good
I think
idea. And
that's good.
actually, the ones that have managed to hear all of this. They have.
Yes,
They will know
they
that.
will know that we're gonna ask them.
Yeah.
Yes, so we
Yeah.
know they viewed it to the end, and
Yeah.
yeah, let's just do a vote, and they can
Good
put it in
idea.
the comments
Yeah.
how we should call it, and we'll think about it.
It will
But
be
for now, I
something like
think
this anyway.
yes. But
Yeah.
for now, I think I'm gonna thank you for your time, and I'm really looking forward to the next one about live music and home hi-fi, because that's always a topic. Like,
It
I
is.
want to hear
Yeah.
how it's presented live. I think it's absolutely impossible to get that
Yeah.
experience in your living room, but who knows? Maybe you have a different view on that.
I have.
So,
I don't
thank
know.
you.
We'll see. We'll see.
Yes.
Yeah.
And for
See you.
now,
Yeah.
to all the viewers,
Thank you.
see you. Bye bye.